What up? Hey, happy Friday. It's Friday night. If you're looking for the place to be, obviously all the cool people are going to Mr. Ritzer's Siddhartha chat on Friday night. I see one person is here already, 20 seconds in. It's going to be a record-breaking night, I think. Maybe not. How you doing? Good to see you, or be seen. I'm not sure. 2 people. Wow. I'm not going to start talking quite yet, but I'm not going to talk for long tonight. It's it's Friday. Hi, Rashmi. How you doing? It's Friday. It's the end of the week. It's cold. I think it's supposed to snow or something. So that's that. I guess you guys saw. I'm sorry, left already. I had 2 people. One of them left. I lost 50% up or back. I guess you guys all saw school's ending on June 15th. Hi, Annette. How you doing? So really, that doesn't affect seniors at all. Your last day is still. Hey there. 4 people? Crushing it. I'll start charging for video shout outs for big companies or something. Oh, hey. What does that mean? I look like I'm going through it, Mr. Ritz. Is that because of my hair or my beard? Or both? I'm not cutting my hair or shaving, so this is nothing. But I did go back and look at the first couple of videos I posted. I had both of them, thank you. I had way less hair and way less beard. So it's funny. I also saw a picture of me from the beginning of school, and my head was shaved, and that was totally different. Last day for seniors is the 22nd. So today's the what? The 8th? Yeah. So 2 weeks from today. That's the last day for seniors. That's exciting, right? I know it's not as exciting as if you were going to have graduation, but it is what it is. Any other questions? Want to give me a chance to answer your questions before I start talking about the book? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. All right. Well, just one of you said that they have no more questions, so that must be the answer for everybody. That light's weird. Are you getting some kind of weird glare from those lights? I don't like those lights. Never like those lights. No, then they won't be able to see me at all. That's better. I think. That's better. All right. Let's talk about Siddhartha. I lost somebody again. I don't know how you sign up. There you go. You came back. I don't know what that means. Are you reading the book? I hope you are. Whoa, 7 of you now. I hope you're reading the book. We're more than halfway through it. Now 6 of you. I shouldn't even keep track of that anymore. So Siddhartha, just to recap, if you have read, if you're not reading, if you are reading, whatever, Siddhartha, he's a young man. He leaves home. He wants to go off on this voyage of discovery to find enlightenment, to get a sense of what the world is. Well, not the world is about. He wants to find inner peace and enlightenment. So he goes off on a search for it. He leaves and he goes with his friend Govinda. They join the Samanas. They learn a lot from them. They hear about the Buddha. They go and they see Gautama the Buddha. Govinda leaves with the Buddha and his followers, and Siddhartha says he's going off on his own. He talks to the Buddha and basically says, I think you're the most enlightened person I've ever seen. I'm never going to, lower my eyes to anybody else. I'm never going to, look at anybody else like a teacher other than you, but I'm not going to follow you because I think what I need to learn on my own. So Govinda goes with the Gautama, and Siddhartha ends up on his own. So when the chapter Awakening starts, It's basically just Siddhartha by himself, and he's kind of sad. Um, he's alone. He hasn't been alone. It sounds like, in his whole life, I don't know. He hasn't been alone. He has always had somebody he's had his family, which he doesn't have anymore, or he's had Govinda following him along, and now he's by himself. So he's lonely, and he realizes in the awakening, and the awakening is, he awakens to something. He realizes in this chapter that he doesn't know himself. That's his big awakening, is that he's spent so much time learning about other things and studying other things and studying from other people that he's tried to lose his self so many times and find out what it's like, to lose the self, and he doesn't really understand what Siddhartha is all about. And so he kind of establishes in this chapter that his goal is now to not escape himself anymore. There's no more escaping, sending his mind elsewhere, trying to, understand what, the meaning of life is, or, any of those things that he's been, trying to do either with his father before, or with the Samanas, or even with Buddha, and all the answers are within himself. So he starts to see the beauty in the world, and that chapter kind of changes a lot. So up to that point, there wasn't much description in anything that was going on around Siddhartha. All you saw was, Siddhartha talking about, learning process or people, and basically it almost seemed to like everything was taking place almost inside of his head. And now in the chapter 12, not chapter 12, I don't know why I said that, but in this chapter, he in the awakening, he starts to describe the world around him. He sees animals going about their animal life, and he sees flowers and nature and beauty. And for the first time, he describes it. So the writing is much different in this chapter, and B, he appreciates it. He sees the beauty in the world. And twice, I think, in that chapter, he mentions the idea of a snake, right? One time he talks about a snake like shedding its skin, and then the other time there's this snake that crosses his path. And I think both times the idea is like the snake is almost like him. He's shedding his skin, he's getting rid of one part of him, and he's leaving it behind, and he's moving on to something else. So the snake is kind of like a metaphor for him, maybe not such a subtle one, but I think that's why the snake comes up. And then he starts to talk about how he didn't look at life like a book before, and now he didn't appreciate, the way people looked at life, and he started to think of it, well, if he was reading a book and wanted to get something out of the book, he would read the pages and read the words of the book instead of just, taking a look at it and casting it aside, which is what he's been doing with the world around him. And he's saying, from now on, I'm going to read the words in the book. I'm going to read the pages, and it makes perfect sense. In order to understand something, right, you've got to pay attention to it. So he says, he's going to read the pages of life from now on, basically, right? If I gave you a book to read and you just looked at it and held it up and then you put it down, you don't get anything out of it. But if you open it up and you start reading it, you're going to, get whatever it is that the author wrote. He also starts to realize that he isn't who he was once upon a time. Right at the beginning of the book, he was a child, he was a son, he was a learned religious scholar, but he's none of those things anymore, and he doesn't really know where he fits in with the world anymore. And that's kind of what he's become awake to. And that's, it's like this chapter is kind of like a transitional chapter for him. It lets you know and lets the reader know that Siddhartha is looking at himself and saying, well, I said I can't learn from other people anymore. I'm not going to follow any more teachers, but now I'm going to, go out on my own. He's like, I'm not who I was, so let's find out who I am. So that's basically the end of that chapter of awakening. And the next chapter is called Kamala, and Kamala is the name of the courtesan that he meets at pretty much the beginning of that chapter. So he's traveling along, and he's seeing the beauty of the world, and he's appreciating the beauty of the world, and he's seeing, again, this goes back to that same idea like I've been talking about, throughout the whole book or at the beginning of the book or whatever, is the idea that in a lot of ways, I like to think of Siddhartha as like a high school senior, right? Or at least, somebody in transition. He's, thinks he's learned everything that he can from people, at a certain point in his life, and he's going out and experiencing it. And this is just another example. He's going out and, he's going to learn things that can't be taught. He's going to have to go out there and experience them himself. So he comes to this river, and there's a ferryman there. So he's basically this guy, this old guy, and he is I don't know. He's not aimless. So he's got direction like all the time. Yeah, he always knows where he's headed. He's looking for something. He doesn't know necessarily what it is he's looking for right now. Well, and then I take that back. He kind of does. He knows he's looking to find out about Siddhartha. He wants to learn about himself. Right? We don't always spend a lot of time thinking about who we are. We spend a lot of time looking at other things or learning about other things instead of ourselves. I guess it is weird that he switches his mindset pretty quickly, but he is that kind of guy. Like he figures out, he's super smart. He's probably, the smartest, most, educated religious guy most of these people in the book have come across. So, he figures things out very quickly, and he says, well, I'm done with this. I'm moving on to this. But he's definitely, and then in the later in the chapter, he compares himself to a rock, right? And gets thrown into the water. And he says, I'm like that rock, right? I know where I'm going, and I fall like right down to it. He's turning into I think that's good, Jacob. I think he's turning into somebody, is a little more well-rounded, right? He was an ascetic. He was a samana. He gave up, everything, and all he did was pray all the time and beg for food and go from place to place. And now, he is expanding that little part, of his life that's been missing up to this point. So he comes across the ferryman, and the ferryman is going to drive him across steer him across this river on a little raft, and he gets across the other side, and the ferryman says, this is a special river. I've learned a lot from the river. And Siddhartha looks at him, and he says, he looked at him, at the ferryman, almost like he looked at Gautama, the Buddha, and says, he's one of the most peaceful, satisfied, content people I've ever seen. So this is going to come back later on in the book, but the ferryman does seem really content, and he does say that if you listen to the river will teach you everything, and that's what the ferryman does. So he takes him across the river, and Siddhartha doesn't have any money to give him, and the ferryman basically says, no worries, you'll get me, some other time down the road. He's like, you and I, you'll give me a gift another time. So he kind of alludes to the fact that maybe they'll meet again down the road. And Siddhartha says, okay, great. So Siddhartha's encountering these people, the ferryman who has, some promise of what the future might bring him. And then he moves on. Siddhartha has a weird dream. I think it's that night of Govinda, where he encounters Govinda, and Govinda comes up and gives him a hug, and then Govinda turns into a woman, and then his top falls off, and I'm not going into that too much, and I don't know that there's that much to get out of it in terms of symbolism. I think it's a little bit of he's left some part of his past behind. He's regretting that in some ways. He misses his best friend, but it also is kind of like Siddhartha's next phase is to go out and learn about the relationships between men and women. So it's a little bit of an indication of things to come. So then there's that. And then Siddhartha's walking along, and he meets that other woman, and she's, I guess, is she washing her clothes down by the river? All right, that was a weird dream. I agree. But it's weird. So he sees that beautiful woman. She's washing her clothes down by the river, and he goes over and he starts talking to her very quickly. And she basically throws herself at him, right? She's like all flirtatious, and he says, I could tell. I mean, he says in his own way, I could tell that she wants to sleep with me if I want to, do that. And he walks over and he gives her a kiss. If you read it, what I'm talking about. If not, you go back and read that. But he gave her a kiss, and then he thinks about that he could have sex with her right then and there if he wanted to, and that she wanted it. And then he says no, right? It isn't what he wanted. It isn't taking place the way he wanted it to. And he basically gives her a little kiss on the forehead goodbye, and he rolls out. And then he goes and he heads to the next town that he encounters, and he's walking through and he sees Kamala for the first time. And Kamala is a courtesan, and a courtesan is basically a high-priced prostitute. And she is teaching men the art of love, basically. And she's really beautiful. And Siddhartha sees her getting carried across the this garden, and they catch each other's eyes. So Siddhartha obviously is a good-looking young guy too. So she sees him, he sees her, and immediately he says, "I need to find out more about her." So he goes and he makes friends with the apprentice or the junior haircut guy, and he gets a haircut, and he slicks his hair back, and he shaves. And he goes back the next day and he kind of introduces himself to Kamala, and she kind of, she laughs. She thinks he's cute, but she basically says, "You're not going to get anywhere with me unless you have money and some nice clothes." And Siddhartha's like, "Okay, right, challenge accepted. I will go basically get some money and some nice clothes." So there's a little bantering back and forth. He gets a kiss from her, and it he says, "If I write you a poem, can I get a kiss?" And she says, "If I like your poem," and she likes his poem. So she kisses him. And basically that one kiss kind of changes his life. He's like, world gets turned upside down. But ultimately, Kamala is, she's supporting herself by charging men for her companionship. So she's basically saying, "I'm not going to be with you until you can pay." And Siddhartha's like, "All right, I can take care of that." And so she's like, what are you able to do? What kind of skills do you have in order to get paid, to make some money? And he says, "I can think, I can wait, and I can fast, right? I can fast, I can not eat for a long time." And she also finds out that he can read or write. So basically, she sets him up with a job with this guy named Kamaswami, and we'll find out about him in the next chapter. But Kamaswami is a businessman. Not Hamlet. Siddhartha is going to go get a job with him, earn the money, get the clothes, and take it back and learn, the ways of women from Kamala. And I think that's where we are. That's the whole 2 chapters. There's not a lot that happened, really. Siddhartha really just becomes aware that he needs to learn more about himself, and then he goes and he encounters. Oh, hi, Brianna. He goes and he encounters the courtesan Kamala, and he, I don't know if he's falling in love with her, but he's certainly enamored by her, and she, definitely likes him as well. But he has to prove herself. He has to prove himself to her before he's going to get any action with her. Not the Anyway, that's it. That was easy. Look at that. 18 minutes. Covered 2 chapters. Got a little teaching off my chest. Feeling good. Anybody have any questions? I think I answered all the questions that are on there. I tried to on the study questions. My wife, she's just over there eating and crackling stuff, just totally disrespecting my classroom etiquette right now. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? Again, this is kind of a weird book, but I like it. I think it's a nice story. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna give you a minute to, not a minute, but I'll give you a couple sometime. How your day? I think you might have meant to say, how's your day? Perhaps. My day was uneventful. But that isn't you. All right. I don't even know what that means. My day was uneventful. I went for a run today, actually. Oh, thanks, Sinead. There was the young guy that got shot and killed in Georgia. I think his birthday is like next week, and there was like this. You run 2.23 miles to. Which is the date that he was shot. So I went and ran 2.23 miles this morning. And that was easy. I thought it was going to be harder, but 2.23 miles was good. I should have run track properly. I might go out for some kind of track scholarship or something. Um, Anybody else? I don't know, like I don't like teaching like this. I like it when the students are there and I can talk to them. How come he no longer wants to be under a teacher, but everywhere he goes, there's always a teacher in some form? Hey, good question. My guess, it's interesting. He is rejecting. Well, I think he's kind of rejecting that people can say, this is how you do something. Like he rejected the samanas because they said in order to get to this point, you have to do this, and he's kind of rejecting. He rejected the Buddha because the Buddha was saying, I can get you to, peace, like inner peace, right, or freedom from suffering, right? But he's basically saying you're going to have to do what I tell you in order to get there. And I don't think Siddhartha, wants to be like a follower of anybody anymore. I think ultimately, he realizes that the way to live your life and to learn is by experiences, not by being told what to do. So I would imagine that would be the answer to that question. So you can always learn from somebody, right? But they're not necessarily telling you what to do in order to get where you want to go. So he's going to want to learn, how to be a lover from Kamala, but Kamala is not going to just tell him what to do. She's going to show him what to do. So I think that's probably the difference in your question, Jacob. All righty. Other questions? That's a good question, though. Thank you. All right, I'm calling it a night then. Got 10 of you now. I had 12. I don't think I can start charging for my YouTube channel quite yet, but something I guess I'll work on. All right, once again, have a nice weekend. If you haven't done your work, that needs to be turned in tonight. 2 weeks left, ladies and gentlemen, and then then whatever happens next happens next. All right, you know how to reach me. Send me an email, text me. I think those are only two options. Have a great weekend. Adios, people. Bye. 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 Bye.